Good afternoon. I've been researching to see what Americans are doing during the coronavirus, people that are stuck at home. And it sounds like a lot of y'all are drinking 40% more than you used to be, eating a lot of junk food, playing video games, and smoking a lot of weed. But for those of you who want to try something else, I'm going to suggest this would be a good time to read more books. And today we have two amazing authors that you could try. Both of them poets. But for those of you who are thinking poetry isn't your thing, let me suggest that the coronavirus is a good time to slow down to the pace of poetry, to let your mind just take a pause, take a breath, slow down to the pace of poetry. And both of these poets, I think, will wow you. So let's start today with Danielle Vogel, The Way a Line Hallucinates.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danielle Vogel, and tonight I'll be reading to you from The Way a Line Hallucinates Its Own Linearity. I just want to start by thanking Red Hen Press, Kate and Toby and Mark, and everybody else behind the scenes for this absolutely gorgeous book. It's going to be coming out on June 30th, and it just arrived to my house a couple of days ago, and I'm pretty much in love with it. It couldn't have come out any better. I think that I can't imagine a better introduction, actually, than what Kate just said, to slow down to the pace of poetry during this time. I began this book in an attempt to do just that, to slow down and look inward and attend to the many ways that poetry, as a nonlinear form of communication, can help us heal those places inside of us that resist language, that resist being looked at, those moments of trauma or great grief or disembodiment, disassociation. And so this book is a book-length meditation on that very thing. The first section of the book, it's written in 3 parts, it's written as a series of letters to the reader that kind of initiates them or invokes them into the space or the seance space of the book and the work that is to be done in part 2 and part 3. Part 2 of the book, which is set up like this, as you'll see, is kind of goes into the seance zone of the book, and we conjure up through these 2 different spaces on the page, this memory zone of the girl that is in question throughout part 1 of the book, and also a deep investigation into what language does or can do as a modality of healing. Part 3 of the book is a long lyric essay that is set up on the page in this way, that it's called a residual volume. It's hard to articulate what the end is because it is exactly a residual volume. And a residual volume is after the most forcible expiration that you could possibly do, your exhale. It's the little bit of air that's left in the lungs that you couldn't quite get out. And so the end of the book is like everything that, just the residuum at the bottom of the body. Tonight, I'll be reading to you from the invocation, the beginning of the book, in hopes that I will invite you into the space of the book and you'll want to keep going on the journey with me. So, The Way a Line Hallucinates Its Own Linearity, part 1 is called Displacements. Dear reader, even in the most lightless of places, we are able to dig up sensation through sound. Here, a clutch of syllables tied with blue string, red clover, lavender, damiana, juniper berries, and deer's tongue, a black candle, a copper ring of hair, ink, let it warp. Into this, a humming, pulled and then away, say spark, say flare, your hands a looping, lip skin, eyelash, elbow, stitch me into place. Come here with a register of questions, bolts of color, a serrated knife, a willingness to fillet, to realign, unhem, and then seam again. Hum for me, one key, to gather these tiny omissions, all things that belong to me, a door in the stars, a door in the tongue, to have slipped. Dear reader, this book is a seance. Here we are all talking, the I, the she, oscillating within. What we carry conjoins. Between us will create another sustainable self, a communal body existing in the wake of an absent one. My hands up to your mouth, and all of this happens. Take the word, hold it until it pieces. I feel the sentence you are moving. Dear reader, all pages architecture intimacy, the symbiotic bonds between this space and ourselves. What happened? What wasn't remembered? A self that was once uninhabitable, a childhood coiled up like some shame shed, until this body arrived in the present as if for the first time. Through its being read, it was written. I wanted it. The contortions that language allows to bring us here, netted, to slow the space and compose a body between us. How these words appear, sanitary and contained, but how just like us, they are multiplying, subdermally. Dear reader, these are porous sheets. Here, within the communal lung of the word, we pulp language through its syntax, an irregular net, a nervous system levitating, linking us through the book. Lead with your own breath, pawing. The way the body halos, a voice attached by some accident. All these gestures, an inscriptive surface, the skin, graft, the inner duration. Look hard. The trajectory of a horizontal line, seemingly contained, its solitary linearity. A second line crosses the first, a third and fourth, a lattice work, correspondence in their adjacency. A tension develops between strands. Somehow, still maintaining their separate linearities, they converse, bisect, and fragment one another, creating a new, interrupted unity. There is a slowness, gathering bolts of wet color. What asks to be rises in light, the translation of a color as it becomes another, as its pigment leans and weakens, making way. I used to think I was interested in dislocation only, but it may be that I am writing toward a buoyancy I have not yet learned to create. A hatched grid, omniatic sound and light, the gift of a tongue reshaping language, so that the form appears in the wake of its vocabulary. However transitory our materials, to find her, the flexed linear network of the alphabet, a grid into which we've fitted the swings. Dear reader, I imagine you arriving. When you are here, everything happens in small spaces. Your eye is a mirror we flicker in, our hands land again, to hear them talk, the hands, where they've been, the unbuckled palm, the cockling hull shingled, a break in the line. Each hand is a book. Handle her. The series stored, unstored, her casing to uncover, her handles marked. The hand holds things. In the muscle is memory, dredged, scaled, a little fish gill, little lipless hand, little widowed hand. It sees in slippages. How to deal with the things that must be. We start at the spaces cleaved. There is the hip, the blade, the wrist, the button. There is the knob of the joint, the brain, the tongue, the clavicle, the ribs. They are all handles, holds, keyholes, baskets. Dear reader, we begin inside and outside of words. Uncovered the dark scribbles. It only takes one letter on the page, and we are already inside one another's lungs. Time splayed through the sentence, a line contorted, but linking, nonetheless. Swatches of sound, overlaid. You can't look without converging. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love that river of language. Thank you so much. And now we have for you Gaylord Brewer with Worship the Pig.
Hi, good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. It's early evening in Tennessee. So my new beautiful book from Red Hen is Worship the Pig. It'll be available June 16th, and there it is. And thank you, Danielle, for sharing that lovely introduction to your book. I'm going to start with the first poem also with the thought that I suppose the first poem always offers, a welcome, an invitation of some kind, and perhaps even a warning. This poem is called When It's Done Right, and the brief epigraph from Mary Oliver supplies the title. And that happiness, when it's done right, is a kind of holiness. This morning you are crazy in love with the heat on your legs, sun-cured to welts on ankles, as flies and chiggers have also been lately enraged with joy. You listen to the breeze with a lazy rapture, to the river on its cold journey. How snow shapes on the mountain have changed these last weeks, lunching dragon replaced by a kitten in a necktie. The cough of a tractor engine is acceptable, as is the rooster's mistimed reveille, even the plaintive caw of raven. No schematic for conquest, no reckless conclusions, no tenuous argument of connection beyond the simple truth of what accrues together. A dull day ahead of usefulness, free of usefulness. Say this is doing it right. This resume of sun, light, breeze, of bare legs, silted creek, bird call unanswered. This singular moment brimming with nothing special and having halfly forgotten what you needed to say. And then we'll flip to a poem, Kate, that I think you like. You mentioned it. I probably should leave out the exposition, but it's actually dealing with the morning after Tony Bourdain's suicide. And it's called simply 1956 to 2018. When the phone buzzed on the quilt of the king-size bed to announce the death, we were up already enjoying the sun, punishing in another hour. Risen over the marsh, the gurgle of receded tide, a raccoon enormous, blackened with mud, crossing labyrinth of sludge under the tall blades. A painted bunting, a male, the one you want, anxious at the feeder. That was before the phone's headline, those 6 terse words. In turn, before our B&B's breakfast of Eggs Benedict and squeezed juice, dark coffee, seasonal melon and berries, and much smallish talk of the day arrived and what it might offer. For us, a pot of pelicans at the pier, their joyous formations, but also the thing hauled on the hook, shark or ray or something else, left wheezing to die, bulbous eye frantic and confused. The urgent lovemaking of afternoon, the bathing, wine, good novel, ritual hour on the breezing balcony. At the restaurant, sweet local shrimps sticky and hot on our fingers. And 6 words receded but palpable in the hours. More words had joined them from many halting voices. Tomorrow we were going home, a long day on the road, God willing, without mishap. In the night, a distant storm of lightning, far enough to be beautiful. As my wife slept, I counted the seconds between explosions until the show was over. And the last section of the book, which was written during a really wonderful, productive stay in Brazil a couple of years ago, I've got a few little short poems. I don't know what else to call them. My wife asked what they're called, and I said short. And they're little life things, really not typical for me at all, but they're kind of like little mood pieces. I thought I'd read one, the short. It's called Something for Monday. This one, I suppose, is typical. It can't always be full artillery. The flame leapt hungry beyond the pit. Not every time the handshake become a fist through glass. Charred flesh under the knife, lips tattooed in blood. The bottle versus the wall. The aria silenced by the curse. Not always the heat at your neck. The night a permanent stain on your knees in the dirt, braying like a dog, and none answers. Sometimes The vacant breeze, the measured gesture, careful hand and steady spoonful, the wide and unaccusing sky, a silent voice controlling each word that could and could not be spoken. So, final poem for the moment. Just trying to, let's get some pork involved in this thing. And trying to sell some books here, guys. This is called Solution to a Morning of Little Possibility, Frying Bacon. Get the big skillet from its hook. Peel one onion strip at a time, butchered and cured down the road by some old boys who worship the pig. And load that thing up over medium-high heat. Get your hands greasy, deep in the pores. Stand over it, working the rhythms until your glasses steam. Your tongue's wagging in a wet mouth. Let it splatter. Let it burn, stain, and make an ungodly mess. Forget about the menu. Bacon takes care of bacon. The unctuous agency of pork, the holy salt flesh and sweet fat better than Jesus and Elvis rolled together. Get the whole house smelling good. The dog on high alert. Damn it, son. This may be the best day of your wasted life. Thank you.
We all know that smell of bacon on a Sunday morning.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Home every day now. Yes. Do you have a dog, Danielle?
I don't, but I want a dog. I miss having a dog in this time. It's been such a gift to be home in this way. It's terrible,
Yeah.
but it feels like a gift at the same time.
It is a good time to have a dog. Gaylord has one. I have two. Yes, they are leaping around when you're home all the time.
Yes.
They are very present. So Danielle, what have you been doing during this time? Are you writing? Are you teaching? How's the teaching going?
I just finished teaching. I just submitted my grades. Teaching was fascinating. I think of teaching as a kind of ceremonial space, as if I'm holding space for transformation to happen for my students during the semester. So the transition to online and having this like barrier to their energies was very strange for me, but it eventually became kind of normal, which I also hated. I hated that it started to feel normal. It made me a little sick feeling that it felt normal, but it went well. It went much better than I thought it could have gone. It was much more work, but it went well. I've been thinking I wish I could talk to professors who teach online all the time just to see how. I haven't had that conversation yet, but I hope to over the summer. I'm looking forward to those conversations.
So you've been, now that you're home and you're not teaching, are you planning to write?
Yes. This is the only time of the only time of the year that I get to just kind of immerse myself in all of the things that I want to do. I've started writing. I'm also an herbalist, and I've been spending a lot of time with plants, which I do all year, but I've been making medicines and flower essences. And as soon as the pandemic, it became very obvious that it was going to be very serious. The first thing I wanted to do was like, it sounds ridiculous, but I'm going to confess it here to all of you. I wanted to like get on the ground and like put my face on the earth. I just had this feeling of like wanting to get as close as possible as I could to the ground. And maybe that was a way of me wanting to feel safe or just like listening in a different way. But I felt that there was this big invitation to listen and get very close to the small things, which is one of the things I love so much about your work, Gaylord. There's so many minuscule things happening in it. Just these delicious moments of being a person, all these details. And so I've been writing, and I've been just listening and talking with plants and making medicines, and finally kind of detangling myself from my students who I love, but I need the space, as we all know who are teachers, we need the space of the summer to just think and write. So it's been sad. It's been a sad time. I've been also making space for grief, but also I'm always interested in the materiality of time, like how it feels to be a person in time feels increasingly bizarre to me as I age. And so right now, I've been talking about this with a few people, and I wonder how you both feel. the quality of time feels similar to my childhood in a way. Like there's something about, I know I'm not leaving. Like I can't go anywhere. And when I was a kid, I had to rely on like my mother to take me somewhere, and she never wanted to take me anywhere. At least that's my memory, of course. So, and I just feel I'm trying to be grateful for that, the materiality of time and how slow it feels, and how material it feels. And I find myself like staring out the window for like 15 minutes, things I just like never make time to do. So that's what my life has been like since I've been home in early March.
Would you normally travel in the summer somewhere?
Yes, I haven't been home in the summer in maybe 10 years. I was supposed to be in Italy. So oh, and I'm gardening. That's the other thing. I can actually have a garden because I'm here and I can tend to it and love it. So it was, I was a little sick that I couldn't go to Italy and do the work I wanted to do there. But at the same time, I'm like, I have these tomato plants and these sage plants and motherwort and all the people in my garden that I'm getting to have a relationship with that I normally don't have time for. So I'm just trying to be grateful for those things also.
Yeah. So I also haven't been home. I have not been home in my own house for a decade at this time. And I'm also gardening. I would be surprised if Gaylord is gardening, but Gaylord, I know you and I are always, you and I separately, not together, but we are all always hearing what you're doing in the summer, and we are always traveling in the summer too. And you would have been, as you were saying, in France at this time, traveling and so on. So what are you doing?
Who needs the south of France, Kate? If I get to see you, Danielle, virtually, it's all good. Actually, I'm gardening. My wife basically covers the garden, but I've been doing my share. And I'm doing even more obsessive birding than usual. And baking a lot. Whatever else I've been doing. Yeah. We have a great strawberry patch down the street. It's all self-picked now. We've been eating. I've been baking strawberry cakes, and you wouldn't believe it. It's a full-time job. So, and they're really good, really good. But our life is basically like this all the time. It's just kind of more of it. We're lucky because we do have some acres, and we can get out. You hear all these horror stories about being stuck in the one-room apartment with the 6 kids or whatever. But so we're very lucky in that one. Yeah. Bird noises on cue. What are those?
Can you hear them? Can you hear those birds?
Yeah,
it's the resident bird who comes at this minute every single night, and I was wondering if you'd hear him.
Thank you. You picked up my motif beautifully, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Gaylord, did you finish up the teaching virtually also?
Yeah, I finished it. We finished each other up, yes. And I agree with Danielle. It was interesting, monumentally time-consuming, colossally. I was really surprised. Yeah. And partly it's because it was spontaneous. I don't know what I was doing, but it's also just, so we'll see what the fall brings.
Right.
We're hearing a lot of rumors like everybody else is, so we'll see what happens. Well, I may have to finally knuckle down and learn some of this technology, Kate.
Yeah.
Which is the greatest nightmare, as you know, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And it's interesting though, because when you're in the classroom teaching, it's very much as you were saying, Danielle, a give and take of energy, and it's sort of this vibrant kind of an experience. I was teaching graduate students, and my experience was that as we eased into this, my students seemed very fragile and distracted. And so I was kind of being easy on them with grading. And I don't know, it just seemed like in the end, they wanted me to be hard on them, but they didn't want me to be hard on them. And I don't know, it just turned out to not be a great semester.
I think it helped that we'd already met half the semester and they knew each other.
Right.
So I went really low tech on everything. That was an element already in play. And I got to do a shout out to my students. They were really, almost all my students really step up to the plate. They really did. Probably some of them in some dire circumstances.
That's great.
It's not like me to be, complimentary.
I know. It's not like you at all, Gaylord. It's shocking. Yeah.
I was proud of them.
Danielle, just you should make note of this because you won't hear a compliment out of Gaylord in a few years.
I'll remember it.
Let's move on to something else. So.
Yeah,
It's my good influence.
Yeah.
So one of the things as an editor that I really do not like to see in a poetry book,
Oh my God.
we're going to now hear this. I didn't see this in either of these books, but I really don't like is I don't like the idea that anybody was just like driving along on the freeway and then they had an idea like, oh, I just saw a deer. I just, sort of like the William Stafford moment, I guess, I just saw a deer and then I pulled over and wrote a poem about it. Not that that isn't a great poem, but if you have a whole collection like that, that's what occasional poems are, right? What I want to think is that the intellect meets the imagination and you wrote a great book. And it's because you did some great thinking and that, your thinking and your imagination met. And both these books are obviously, are obviously examples of that kind of great work. So Danielle, in your book, when I first read it the first time, I just remember thinking like, the first read through, I was just like, what the freak is she doing? And it's just like, I knew something massive was happening, but then I read back in and I kept on trying to figure out exactly what you were doing. It felt like something between poetry and a physics experiment the first round, So tell us a little bit about what it was you were working with when you were first writing this book. What was the framing concept, kind of
Sure.
thing?
Yeah, it began as a very personal experiment, as most things do. It began, and I'm sorry if I upset anybody, just a trigger warning, I'll be talking a little bit about assault, but not in any detail. It began one morning while I was on my way to work, and I was stalked and assaulted by a man who I managed to fight off of me, who was arrested and has been in jail for quite some time now. But after that assault, something happened in my body where memories started to kind of like hatch and emerge in me. And I was teaching at the time and I would be teaching and I would like hear conversations in my own body from like my childhood, like my grandmother's voice, my mother's voice, things that I didn't know that I remembering. And that feeling terrified me. But also set about some deep healing in me that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not been assaulted. So there was this strange like appreciation for the assault, which sounds horrible, but like it gave me my body and my physicality in a way that I never quite understood before. And so I started, for me, in this place of writing about that feeling of like these memories sucking their way to the surface, this slippery space of being grateful and at once horrified at having been assaulted. And so I worked in that zone for many, many years. I worked with a somatic therapist and a hypnotist, and I wrote a lot around that. And then once I had like a massive body of work and notes, then I thought, this is a book. This could help other people heal. So I had to channel all of that, which was very personal, into what I think of as like a book-length ceremony. And so for me, then I designed like, part one is the initiation space of inviting or warning, as Gaylord so rightly said, warning the reader of what you're about to get yourself into. Part two of the book is you're inside, and as I showed briefly earlier, you're inside this kind of curated space where up here, this is where the memories are sucking their way to the surface, and then this is the narrator narrating like what is happening underneath that psychologically. So the physics experiment, or if that's what, I can't remember if that's what you said, that's kind of quite exactly right. Like being displaced and splayed across time and space, and how poetry can hold space for that. And then part three of the book, after I was done with that, I felt worried. Like I felt like, what am I doing to my readers? Like I'm pulling them through this zone that's amorphous and disembodied in an attempt at healing something in me and hopefully in them. But then I felt like I had something else to say. And then the afterword poured out of me. It's just not clarifying at all, by the way, but is at least a little more grounded and personal. So that's my project. That's my hope. And what I love so much is that, and I mentioned this earlier when we were off screen to you, Kate, that people don't usually know what's happened to them after I give a reading from this book, or they don't, like, they have that exact feeling, what the F was that? Like, I don't even know what just happened to me. And that's exactly the space that I want to invite them into, because I believe that healing happens in that nonlinear, amorphous, diaphanous space. And if we can be more comfortable in that discomfort, we can all do the like deep healing work that we need to do. And right now is, if we do have the privilege of having the time, is a really good time to look into those places in us that are like muted or numbed out. And I hope that my book helps people through that space within themselves.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that an experience can be a doorway into something deeper. And that's why partly, I kind of started off this. I think that Americans are doing a lot of numbing right now instead of doing introspective work. I didn't mention that Pornhub keeps crashing, so there's obviously quite a bit of numbing going on in America.
Yeah.
So I think that there are other things that we could do that would wake us up. And I'm not saying that we can't, sit in front of television or be eating our bacon, but I think that that those doorway experiences are amazing. So, Gaylord, tell us a little bit about the writing of your book. One of the things, obviously, that Danielle's already alluded to is you certainly pay attention. You are paying attention, and that comes through with all of your books. When was your first book with Red Hen? First of all, can we do that? What year was that?
Let's see, 1999.
1999.
Yeah.
So, Danielle,
it was the first Benjamin Saltman Award. As I told Mark before it got competitive.
Yeah.
So, yes. So, right.
For a book called Devilfish. So tell us about the making of Worship the Pig.
I guess my methodology stays about the same, Kate. I write a lot of poems. When I get enough that I like, I throw them together and see who wants to hang out with whom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first part. And I think I mentioned to you, I didn't threaten you with actually seeing it. The first draft of this book had over 200 poems in it because I had a for some reason I wanted to make a really wide canvas and take a look at it. Cutting that in half is pretty easy. Cutting it down to the 50 or so gets a little trickier. But once you see who wants to hang out, the question I need to answer to myself is, why do they want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need to be explicit in the book, but I need to be satisfied about why that's happening. So that's the winnowing down to get that, whatever you want to say, imagination, intellect, trying to coalesce somehow. That sounds more highfalutin than the actual process of just being quiet, listening to the poems, trying to make those decisions. And if you want to talk a little backstage biz here, as you recall, we were already in an early proof stage, and I decided I need to cut a whole section of the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very generous book, and it's beautifully designed and commodious. Has a lot of poems. I just decided I had too many, and this one section was bothering me because you never know how long that process is going to take. And you guys are very generous, letting me blow the thing up and redo it. And I thought that was not the last straw, but I thought that was the last piece of the editing. It was intuitive, but I felt strongly about it. And I felt really, really happy. We got that done. I thought, okay, we got it now. Now we got it.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ask me what it is because I refuse to tell you. But you know what I mean, right? So it's an ongoing thing, right? And that's generally my MO, I guess. An exception might be our last book, Country of Ghost, which was the most thematic, unified book I ever wrote, and it was intended to be that it was a scheme from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So that was approached a little differently. It was just a matter of, okay, I've thought of this sort of audacious product and project. Can I possibly pull it off? So that was a little bit different, but generally it's just even before my first Red Hen book, my very first book was just writing the poems, putting them together, and make this work, and let them talk and talk to me and talk to each other.
I think to a certain extent, what makes a book cohere is that over a particular period of time, there's something one is thinking about. And really we only have 3 or 4 things that we're strongly thinking about. And those end up weaving together into a book. At least that's my observation as editor. I don't think people are thinking about 25 different things.
Yeah, I think
They
that
usually
yeah.
thread together.
Yeah. And it may only be 3 or 4 things over a whole lifetime too, right?
Yeah,
Just keep sort of
depends how smart you are.
doing iterations of over and over again. Yeah.
Right. So obviously you all had bigger plans when it came to promoting your book. For anyone who's watching this, I'm assuming you're both available for doing Zoom kind of conversations with people's graduate classes or people's undergraduate classes, or even with book clubs or with people who have book groups that meet in their living rooms or that kind of thing. They can get in touch with you, or they can get in touch with Red Hen. You guys are happy to meet with them. But do you have anything planned over the rest of the year right now that you are planning to do in terms of promoting the book right now? Danielle, you said you're just kind of chilling.
I am at the moment. I have everything that I was going to do was canceled, and I'm not sure how to go about making other things happen right now. I was thinking my birthday's in July, and I wanted to do a kind of like house reading in celebration of my book. My birthday's always weird to me, so I thought celebrating the book might be more fun. So I'm hoping to do that, and I will definitely promote that soon if I choose to do that, because it's in July. But other than that, I don't have anything planned yet. My favorite thing to do is talk with students and visit classes and meet with like small intimate groups of people. I love talking with people one-on-one so much, or just in a smaller group setting. I feel like magic happens when we're in those smaller settings. So I hope more things like that happen as people finalize their syllabi for the next year or so.
Definitely. Gaylord,
when I finally got the release date of the book, Kate, I was already thinking, I don't believe the pandemic has hurt us too much, because I'm an academic on academic schedule, so things wouldn't have really started cooking until the fall anyway. So at the worst, the things would be moved back to maybe next spring, God willing, right?
Yes.
So I don't think it'll be a seismic shift as far as that goes. And yeah, I'm available. Weddings, divorces, bar mitzvahs, whatever you got. And I talked to my lawyer. I can still meet students. So I'm ready. Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to go. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Obviously, what happens in terms of people being able to gather and bookstore events and that kind of thing as we move forward. We're certainly hoping that Parnassus Books, for example, will be open. What's your nearest bookstore, Danielle?
Oh my goodness, I actually don't know. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking of like places in Providence, Rhode Island, New Haven, and New York. I can't think. My partner's actually yelling from upstairs, telling me my nearest bookstore, but I can't hear her. I don't know what my nearest bookstore is.
You know what? I don't want to speak for Danielle, but I think that authors and readers alike are just gnawing at the bit to get back some sense of normalcy, and we want to get out there and meet people and try to promote books that we love that are beautiful, and I think people want to come out even to poetry readings.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think people will be very eager to get out and come to events, talk to authors, and just get out of their houses a little bit. So, as both of you move forward, are you at this point thinking that you want to write different things about, in terms of another book? Are you, either of you, writing pieces about COVID? What are you writing right now? Or are you just cooking bacon?
Well, I mentioned to you in San Antonio the last time. Who knows? Those were the good days anyway, right?
I know.
Good old days. Who knew? I'm working on a totally different kind of thing now, and I'm superstitious about talking about that.
Okay.
But inevitably, these strange turn of events have worked into what's going on. But it was timely for me because I was working and I was kind of in shape, so to speak. And I feel for my friends who write me and say I'm stuck in the house with my 3 kids and can't write a word and go crazy, because that's not my situation. So we shall see.
Right.
Knock on wood, about what happened.
Right.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
And Danielle, you're working on your herbalism.
I am, but I'm also, this book, as anybody who buys it will see in the introduction, it's the second book in a triptych of poetic texts, the first one being Between Grammars that came out in 2015, and the third one being A Library of Light, which will be forthcoming at some time. I'm at the first draft stage with it, so I'm working on that this summer. And I'm also working on new work, which I don't normally talk about either, in the same vein as Gaylord. I feel like I need to protect it, but I already told you about my herbalism work. So I'm working on, like, right now, like the poetics of flower essences and vibrational medicine and how that relates to poetry and nonlinearity and things like that. I'm doing these deep meditations and writings with certain flowers. So I'm working on that and also editing the third book that comes after this one in the triptych. And it's delicious. I love summer for that reason. And I'm very grateful to be home and just be able to look at those things when I don't feel too sad or aren't eating all the cookies as most people are doing.
Who published the
So,
first book in the triptych, Danielle?
the first book is by Noemi Press. It came out in 2015.
Okay.
It's a beautiful book. I love that press so much too.
They are such a cool little press. They've also published another author that we have published, Douglas Kearney.
Yep. Yep.
You remember Doug Gaylord?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. He has a book out with them as well.
He's amazing.
Where are they located?
I believe they're right now in West Virginia. They used to be in New Mexico, but I think they're in West Virginia now. I think they moved to like the Virginia Tech area, if I remember right.
So both of you this summer are going to just stay put and do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very unusual year. So I want to go back to Danielle, what you're talking about time, because I've been thinking a lot about this and how, in the 18th century, how people would just obviously not be moving around as much as Americans do in the 21st century. For myself, generally, I would fly somewhere every couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
New York, Nashville, San Francisco. I mean, I always would have 4 or 5 airline tickets lined up for Red Hen trips or whatever. And it is strange that when you're staying home, it feels like time stretches out forever. There's something about staying home all the time that feels like time just keeps going. And I think that we change our relationship with time. And I'm not sure if it's a good thing or not, but I was thinking about how you were saying that it reminds you of being a child. Because for me, it specifically reminds me of a time when I was a child that I was quarantined in my house or in a room for 3 months. And so I just felt like I kind of returned to the womb and I was just in that room for 3 months. And the ideal should be that something good comes out of all of this. Not that we just return to our houses and eat too much and drink too much and, become our own worst selves, but that something beautiful comes out of our having been returning to this sort of cocoon state. And I'd like to think that we are coming up with some good ideas in this kind of place collectively. But I'm not sure if we are collectively, because it seems like a lot of individuals are, in this country at least, are fighting against the idea of being quarantined and that Americans have this tendency towards just vegging out and overeating and overindulging. So I don't know. I hope we're all at least encouraging our own students to do something bright and positive and fierce and energetic with their lives. And, at Red Hen, we've been very excited about doing these StreamYards because we feel like we're putting something out into the world with our writers that is encouraging people to do something, be something, think about something, create something, make something. come up with some ideas about how you two can change the world, or garden, or bake bread or something, you know?
I was going to say that the things we gain could really be pretty modest, Kate, too, as well as other things. Just appreciation.
Right.
Like, for example, I haven't seen my elderly father for 5 months now, which is unprecedented. So I'm going to enjoy seeing him again.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
And just being quiet.
Right.
So,
Yeah. The
Don't
things
you guys feel that you talk about the time, but even as it elongates, haven't you also felt that it contracted in a strange way? Like the day's gone forever, but a week will pass like that.
Right.
Anyway. It's just like it's Wednesday again.
Right.
Mhm.
Doing the red hen thing to not, it's very strange.
Right.
It is very disorienting. So true.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's already been 2 months of this.
Almost 3. I've been home
Yeah.
since March 6th.
Yeah. I got home from New York mid-March. I was in New York mid-March, and I hopped a plane and got out of there just before the axe fell on New York, and quarantined at home with Mark for two weeks. He picked me up at the airport, and I said, "Aren't I supposed to be quarantining?" And he said, "I'm with you, babe.
Aw.
Yeah.
We're doing this together."
Yeah.
And
How'd you feel about that? Good.
yeah, because frankly, first of all, I hadn't really thought it through, but how was I going to get home from the airport? I mean, there's no other way unless I was going to be with an Uber driver, and then what would that person have done? So it was the right thing to do, but I just had not thought it through at all. I just got to the airport and then hadn't thought through how I was going to get home. LA is not a great place for public transportation. So, well, it would be very cool if it works out that, like in the spring or something, that the two of you guys are able to come to LA. I don't know, but we'll see. We can only dream.
So.
Yeah.
I hope so. That would be wonderful.
When was the last time you were on the West Coast, Danielle?
Oh my goodness. 2017, I think, if I remember right. It's been a long time. And actually, LA, I've never been to LA, ever been to LA.
Oh, wow.
The only city large city in the US that I've never been to, which I don't know why, but it just has happened that I've never been there. And I have a ton of friends there. So
you've been to San Francisco?
Yes.
San Francisco, it's a much better city. It's a much cooler city. I don't know why I don't live there.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's great. It has bridges. It has good food. It has good music. It has 4 times the arts funding of Los Angeles. It kicks our butt. But we live in Los Angeles, so.
Well, I hope to visit. The spring would be great.
Well, here's hoping for a vaccine and all that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm very happy that both of you are still writing and still working and everything. And I like to hear, Danielle, about people who have had trauma happen to them and then got therapy. Having had great trauma happen to me and not gotten therapy, I'm always encouraged by the idea that I could still do it sometime, you know?
You absolutely could. We can talk about that. I've been doing EMDR, which I highly recommend.
What's
I'm happy
EMDR?
to talk to you about it. EMDR is a type of therapy that it could either be with lights, where there's like tracking lights that you follow, or it can be with buzzers. I work with buzzers, and it activates the right and left hemisphere of your brain. And with the guidance of a trained therapist, they help you walk through key traumatic moments in your life to rewire them and heal them so that you can approach them at a great distance, not so that you forget them or they are re-narrated. That was very important to me. I was like, I don't want any lines snipped. I don't want to be hypnotized. I don't want anything to be forgotten. But things happen at a distance so that you can have perspective and a greater emotional depth around it without panicking or feeling unsafe. And I have to say, it's been the most transformative thing that I've possibly ever done with therapy, and I'm happy to talk with you about it more. It's been incredible
on a personal level, and then it would be great if eventually for the whole country.
Oh my God! Yes.
NPR for the whole Trump experience.
Yes.
And maybe even for the COVID-19 experience, but definitely for the Trump presidency. Don't you think, Gaylord?
Yes. Yes, I'm willing to try anything. Yes, let's do it.
Just to sort of understand like what this trauma was, like, but from a distance. So we didn't have to relive it, but from a distance we could understand what happened to us, you know.
Lucy just came into the room. She almost died 2 weeks ago, but she's doing good now. And so, you know, hey, baby, what?
Gaylord is very close to his dog, and his dog has even gotten crazy fighting with Gaylord, but Gaylord still loves his dog.
Oh yeah, you can't see my new nose she gave me 3 months ago. It's very different. Mark mentioned it several times when we were in Texas. So,
why were you getting crazy fighting with her?
I did nothing. I was trying to explain a simple principle. It was nothing wrong.
Oh no.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what I'd like to be optimistic about the rollouts, but I'm not. So, but I'm terribly wrong, and that we're getting back to normal pretty soon. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad your dog is doing well. I'm very glad. She's recovering and everything.
Yes, she has a new pink harness. It looks very fetching, I think.
It's very good. It's very good. Yeah. If our dog is almost 100 pounds, so if you got crazy with him and we're like play fighting and everything,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, could get crazy. So Danielle, I think you need to adopt a dog.
I do. I know. I grew up with dogs, so I'm really missing having a dog right now. We're home, and I feel like this would be the perfect time.
So I think we've settled on Americans need to adopt dogs, read more poetry.
Yes.
Get therapy, possibly. Eat bacon. Buy poetry books. What else do you think, Gaylord?
That sounds like a good prescription to me, Kate.
Yeah.
I could live with it.
Okay.
So here's my new red book, Worship the Pig. It's a beauty.
Worship the Pig. And can you hold up your book, Danielle?
Absolutely.
June 16th. Wake up early. Amazon. Go get it.
Okay. Both of these books can be ordered in advance. They can be pre-ordered on Amazon. And can you guys each mention what your pub date is?
June 16th.
And mine is forthcoming on June 30th.
June 16th for Gaylord and June 30th for Danielle. Both of these books will be available on Amazon and also on other places where you buy books like Bookshop. If you want to buy it directly from your independent bookseller, you can get them from Bookshop, which has been doing very, very well during the pandemic. I think their book sales have gone way, way up. So for those of you who like, you can also, of course, some of you have independent booksellers that you can order them from directly. Some of your booksellers are now doing delivery right there. Please feel free to support your independent booksellers. We always want to support our independent booksellers. The two of you feel free to stay on for a moment after Toby closes up, and then we can just talk with you for a moment. Thank you both so much for coming on today. Here's to poetry. Here's to all of us staying safe. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Kate. Danielle, lovely meeting you. Thank you.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.